Right. So, I mean, if there's a conflict in the region, I mean, if between China and the Philippines, for example, uh, the U.S. is going to get involved based on the Mutual Defense Treaty. And then if the U.S. gets involved, it's going to need help with the Philippine neighbors. So the neighbors are Taiwan and Japan in the north, and then countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia. These are all countries that are going to be needed to help the U.S. Papua New Guinea with the 6 new bases that they've opened up. So many countries in the region are going to get involved. And so if China sparks something, it's not going to be a simple little event unless the Philippines and the U.S. contain it. And don't forget, there are multiple treaties and security arrangements between all these countries in the region. We know about the U.S. to Asian countries, but there's also between Asian countries. For example, Japan and Australia have a security agreement. The Philippines is now discussing with Japan a security agreement, with Australia, with India. I mean, there are a lot of overlapping relationships that once something gets kicked off, it could start like a hornet's nest. It's gonna not be pleasant.
And is this the reason why we are seeing the Philippines stepping up in terms of, really coming to the fore to consider working with the US in terms of any Taiwan crisis because of the interconnectedness? We know for a long time that Japan knows that if there was a Taiwan crisis, its security would reduce.
Yes, and just like Japan understands that the U.S. will need to use the bases that the U.S. military is stationed in Japan to help Taiwan. Taiwan needs to understand that they will need to help the U.S. and perhaps even get involved in some kind of a crisis with the Philippines. I mean, just recently, the Balikatan exercise was conducted. Although it was ostensibly a U.S.-Philippine exercise, it also included the Australians and the French. And guess what? 14 other countries were observers. And the list of countries is exactly the same list of countries we just talked about, who would probably be involved in a Taiwan crisis, which is code word for a war between China and Taiwan, such as Brunei, Canada, Germany, UK, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia. These are all countries, New Zealand, South Korea, Singapore. These are all countries that are going to are watching the exercise and probably thinking about how they're going to deal with a problem in the Philippine and the West Philippine Sea. But it's the same countries that would be involved potentially in a Taiwan crisis.